Hello and welcome to Enfresp. In this video, we are looking at how to ask people their names. We are going to look first at how to ask someone their name informally. In English, we would ask, "What is your name?" The literal translation of this phrase in French is, "How yourself call you." So we translate how, which is comment. Yourself is te. We then translate call, so we find the root word and conjugate with informal you. We add es, appel, and we then translate you, which is tu. Te ends in a vowel and appel begins with a vowel, so these words are joined with an apostrophe, making the phrase sound like this.
Comment t'appelles-tu?
Let's look at the pronunciation of this phrase. The T at the end of comment is silent. The double L in appel makes the E before the L's say e, and the S at the end of appel is silent. And the U in tu makes a short oo sound. It's also worth noting 2 points about written French. The first is that when the subject is after the verb, it's called inverted, and the two words need to be joined with a hyphen, the verb and the subject. The second is that a space is added before most punctuation marks made up of 2 or more symbols. There is a name for this space.
Une espace insécable.
Let's hear the phrase meaning, "What is your name?" informally again.
Comment t'appelles-tu?
Most of the time, I would recommend using "what is your name" using formal French. Again, the literal translation of this phrase is "how yourself call you." So we translate how, which is comment, then yourself, which is vous. To translate call, we find the root word and conjugate it with formal you, which means we add ez on the end, appeler. And we then translate you, formal, which is also vous.
Comment vous appelez-vous?
Let's go through the pronunciation of this phrase. The T of comment is silent. The S on the first vous is heard because it's followed by a vowel. There is only one L in appeler, so the E is making an sound. And the EZ of appeler makes an A sound. The S at the end of the phrase on vous is silent. Note the written points again as well. The subject is after the verb, so they are inverted and consequently joined by a hyphen, and there is a space before the question mark. Remember that this phrase is used both when speaking formally to one person and when speaking to more than one person, whether formal or informal. Let's hear "What's your name?" formal again.
Comment vous appelez-vous?
We'll now look at how to ask what is his or her name. The literal translation of this phrase is "how himself calls he," or "how herself calls she." So we translate how, which is comment. Translate himself or herself, which is se. We then translate call, so we find the root word and we conjugate with he or she to make appel. And we then translate he or she, which will be il or elle. The word se ends in a vowel and appel begins with a vowel, so these two words are joined with an apostrophe. You will also notice that appel ends in a vowel and both il and elle begin with vowels. These words can't be joined easily, so a T is placed between them. And because the subject is after the verb, they're hyphenated. So the questions, "what is he called?" and "what is she called?" sound like this.
Comment s'appelle-t-il? Comment s'appelle-t-elle?
Note that the T does not have a particular meaning. It's to separate the two vowels and make the phrase sound better. Let's look at the pronunciation. The T is silent on como. The double L make the E before them, say e. And the T is pulled to il or elle. Let's hear the two questions again.
Comment s'appelle-t-il? Comment s'appelle-t-elle?
Finally, we'll look at how to ask what are they called. So the French phrase literally translates as how themselves call they. So we translate how, which is como. We then translate themselves, which is se. We translate call by finding the root word appelle and conjugating it with they. So we add ent to the end, which is silent, so it still sounds like appelle. And we then translate they, which is il, if referring to a male or mixed gender group, and elle, if referring to a female-only group. Again, the word se ends in a vowel and appelle begins with a vowel, so these words are joined with an apostrophe. And the subject is after the verb, so they are inverted and consequently joined with a hyphen. Let's hear, what are they called in French?
Comment s'appelle-t-il? Comment s'appelle-t-elle?
Let's look at the pronunciation of these phrases. So, the T on como is silent. There is a double L after the E, so the E before the L says e. ENT on the end of appel is silent. However, the T at the end of appel is heard because it's followed by a vowel. Let's hear the two phrases again.
Comment s'appelle-t-il? Comment s'appelle-t-elle?
Okay, let's go through these questions again. What is your name? Informal and single is.
Comment t'appelles-tu?
What is your name? Formal or plural is.
Comment vous appelez-vous?
What is his name is.
Comment s'appelle-t-il?
And what is her name is.
Comment s'appelle-t-elle?
What are their names? Speaking about males or a mixed group is.
Comment s'appelle-t-il?
And what are their names? Speaking about females is.
Comment s'appelle-t-elle?
When you meet someone, it's nice to respond in English with pleased to meet you. In French, there is one word for this phrase, which is.
Enchanté.
If you are male, you will always respond with the first one written down, and if you are female, you will always respond with the second one. These words are both pronounced the same. Note the en at the start sounds more like an on, the ch makes a sh sound, and the e with the accent is making an a sound. Let's hear it again.
Enchanté.
If someone asks your name and you want to ask them their name, instead of repeating Comment vous appelez-vous, you can simply ask, and you? In French, this is.
Et toi?
In informal French and.
Et vous?
In formal French. To end this lesson, let's hear a couple of conversations in French using the French that we have learned so far.
Bonjour, comment vous appelez-vous?
Je m'appelle Céleste. Et vous?
Je m'appelle Alain. Enchanté.
Enchanté.
Salut Bré, comment s'appelle-t-elle?
Bonsoir, elle s'appelle Céleste et Coralie.